All right. Well, hi. I am Sarah Stambaugh, and I am a doctoral student at the University of Tennessee. And I am currently working with the Murder Suicide Loss Network, a nonprofit organization that you'll be hearing a lot more about today. But today we are hoping to just have a conversation about some of the ethics of reporting of murder suicide loss, some of the impacts on the community that reporting on these losses can have on people, very real impacts of often very devastating situations. And we're just going to have a conversation today. So I figure we can go ahead and get started with introducing everyone. So, like I mentioned, my name is Sarah. I'm a doctoral student from UTK. And I'm coming into my work with the Murder Suicide Loss Network from the suicide prevention world, over 6 years of work with 988 suicide prevention. So that's kind of where I'm coming to this from. I'm not a murder suicide loss survivor. Um, I don't know who would like to introduce themselves next.
Susan, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm Susan Kurtzman. I'm on the board of the Murder Suicide Loss Network, and I'm a friend survivor. My friend, dear friend and colleague, Susan was murdered, um, and then by her son, who then took his own life. And I have to say that this event really changed not only me, but our very small community, all the people that we were involved with, all the friends that Susan had, and family members as well. And I'm grateful to have a forum to be able to talk about it, because it's something that people reluctantly think about and rarely talk about once the event has occurred. So I'm glad to be here and glad to be on the network, and look forward to talking some more. Jenna.
Thank you. Susan and I suffered the same loss from two different viewpoints. I lost my mother and then I lost my brother. And a couple weeks later, my one of my colleagues sent me a news article or an article that someone had written. And through that article, I found the Murder Suicide Loss Network, or their first version of it. Um, and now I am on the board. And we thought we might start with Susan and my story. But before then, we have Latoya, who is going to introduce herself.
Thank you, Jenna. My name is Latoya, and I am the board secretary for the Murder Suicide Loss Network. My father took his own life 5 years ago in a murder suicide, and since the tragedy, I have become an advocate. I have become a best-selling author, so I'm here today to raise awareness and to shine a little light on this very complicated and tragic um, life that we all have to face now. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to round us out, I'm AJ Schroeder. I'm a local community member and Sarah's husband. I will primarily be the ignorant one in the room. I came to MSLN through Sarah, and she asked if I'd like this opportunity to present the perspective of someone who doesn't really know very much about murder suicide, the loss that comes from it, and is completely outside of the psychology field. So I'm here to just provide the layman's perspective and see how kind of an average person perceives this as someone who hopefully and thankfully hasn't had anything close to a loss or a situation occur related to these events.
Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you all for your introductions. I also realized in the process of you all talking that I left out that I'm on the scientific advisory committee. That probably would have been worth mentioning. But yeah, I discovered MSLN through Jenna and reaching out. So we've come full circle. And I'm gonna hand the floor back to Jenna and she can get us started.
Right. Um, yeah, we thought that it would be interesting to use my story and Susan's story to kind of kick off. There's been at least there's been about a murder suicide every day. Been doing some research recently. Um, Sometimes it happens more than once a day, and these stories, the way that we find out that this has happened is through the news media. And we thought rather than sharing other people's stories and how that might impact us, we might talk about the stories that came up about my family, about my brother, about my mother. And then, I can give my perspective. Susan can give hers as one of my mother's best friends, Latoya. Um, had to go through her own thing, and we thought we just might talk about how reporting social media um, can just be how it impacts the survivors and the community members. It's fantastical. I don't know, Noah, if you can pull up that the news article that we have been talking so much amongst ourselves about. I can read the header of it, and perhaps maybe we can have AJ, who's new to this, how you might feel just reading this in the news, right? So, Daily Mail, heroin addict chef 34 is arrested for murdering his mother 70 and setting her remains on fire outside her $900,000 home in an affluent Cape Cod, Massachusetts, after she threatened to kick him out for failing to get clean. Um, so let's start with that. I mean, if you're reading that in the news, AJ, how to put you on the spot.
I hate to respond with a question, but
Yeah.
Jenna, how does it feel to see, like, because my immediate reaction is that's a family, right? And that's a family unit. And I know that there's so many feelings and complexities involved with that, but how does it feel that that is the first thing you see about a family member? That's the first thing that the world sees about that family member. No context, no anything. It makes it seem criminal when it's very personal, and personal and criminal can be the same, but kind of what are your feelings? What was that first hit? Because that's what really gets to me, is like, this is somebody's brother, this is somebody's mother, and this is how they're choosing to portray them. It just seems almost diabolical without any further context that they're shoving a narrative onto it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I it is. I think that the almost like fantastical uh headline, if you will, um makes it I refer to this as my favorite of the news articles that came out, because it's wild, and it almost makes it feel like it was about someone else, um, because this is so much not the story. I don't know if you can respond to that too, Susan.
Yeah, the one thing I was a copywriter for many years in advertising in New York, and the choice of words that they picked for that headline were just about every sensational thing that they could possibly pick, whether it was true or not. And
Mhm.
some of the facts in there are false. Some are not facts; they're just made up. And I think the sensational part of it is the part that's really hurtful, because what they're trying to do is capture people's attention about something that's, and frighten them to death. Whereas the rest of us who have suffered through this are in mourning, and we're in a state of shock. And this just adds to that. And I feel that oftentimes the reporters get the information wrong. They're picking up things, from social media or from other places that they mined the information, and it's incorrect. So for me, it was I was angry about it, because I felt that it's not portrayed properly. It's really not given the correct attention, which is there were some issues and problems here, and maybe somebody could have a little heart in putting it out there. So that was my impression.
Mm. Yeah.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
It's a lot.
Um,
Go ahead, Jen.
yeah, I know. I think that Susan's correct. It's for clicks. It reminds me of a recent uh, case, a recent loss, a recent 4-person murder suicide loss. Sarah and I have talked about this, um, where a woman lost 4 people who were close to her, including 2 of her kids. And her first response was to go on Facebook and write about her children because she knew articles like this would come out.
Mm.
And I thought that was devastatingly sad and smart, actually. I did not at the time that this was happening have the wherewithal to think, oh, I should talk about who these people really were and who they were to me. Um, so,
And nor should you. I mean, and sorry to interrupt, but it's wild that when tragedy occurs, we automatically have to jump to optics or somebody else will present
mm,
those optics, especially as a layperson.
mhm,
How many of us have media training? How many of us know that you can say no to a reporter?
yeah,
Mhm.
It's
And I wonder about the editors checking facts because, lots of things were wrong in that headline. And, just even putting it out there, to be able to get it out there as quickly as possible and most sensationally as possible. And when you read through the article, they even tie it to a murder that had happened more than a decade before that had nothing to do with this
mhm,
particular incident. And yet they're trying to find all of the facts that they possibly can related to this little town. And it's too bad because there's no understanding that there are actual people with real emotions behind all this, um, very, deeply affected by the incident itself.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if we want to talk more about the article or,
And
oh,
it seems like
go ahead.
it seems like anger came up a lot for everyone,
Yes,
regardless of how they came to the story.
yes.
That's definitely how I felt too the first time you showed me Jenna. Um, it's quite an article, so maybe would you want to spend some more time talking about it and kind of pulling some of the information apart?
Yeah, I see Latoya is back. I just wanted to ask Latoya if you had any articles like this come up. Um,
Yes, definitely, because my father was in radio TV broadcasting and he was a news cameraman for 30 years. When this incident occurred, it was a big headliner in the community. I feel that the station that he worked for, they were very protective of him in reporting. They stuck to the facts of who he was and the facts surrounding the incident, and they did not disclose any, they didn't sensationalize it at his station. However, other news stations locally in the area sensationalized the story and made it out to be something that none of us know. We don't know the facts of what happened that night. No one was there other than the 2 victims. So, and I say 2 victims, and I say that because I feel that my father was a victim as well, even though he was the perpetrator. He was a
mm,
victim of circumstances, mental illness, depression, all of those things. So I've seen the articles. I've actually had a couple of phone calls that were made to me to have a sit down interview. And as we mentioned earlier, I was able to say no and decline respectfully. And all of that has died down now. But during the time that it was happening, it definitely added to the layer of grief that I was already experiencing.
yeah.
do you feel a need to own that narrative as part of the healing process? Does it
Yes.
help to have control and to be able to go to these people and kind of tell them what they've done and what they're doing?
Yes, definitely. And I think I have an obligation to uphold the father that I knew. Like, I want people to remember my father for the man that he was for 67 years on the planet Earth. And I don't want him to be remembered for that one day. That one day he made the worst decision known to man. He committed the worst act known to man. And he ended the life of someone who was beautiful. She loved him. She didn't deserve that. But I stand on stages and I do podcasts and I talk to people because I want people to realize that looking at my father, a man who in the public eye had everything going for himself, he could still be struggling and deal with darkness and demons inside of him. So I want people to know that you can look like you have it all together on the outside, but on the inside, people are suffering and there's brokenness, and I want everyone to learn what those warning signs are, because the warning signs were always there. I just didn't know what they were. I didn't know how to identify them. So that's my job now, is to help people identify those subtle little hints and the joking comments and things of that nature. Yeah.
So
It's a,
something you said, I think both in something that you said, Latoya, and something you mentioned earlier, Susan. Um, and it's shifting a little bit back toward the article, but just thinking about, you know, how I'm thinking about what you mentioned, Jenna, of this mom who felt like the first thing she needed to do was to go to Facebook and say, here's who my children really are. These sweet, wonderful children who have interests and had futures and things that they were excited about that are all gone now or feel like they've been taken away by the way the story is being portrayed. Latoya, for you and your father, you know, like you knew him your whole life, and there's this version of him that it seems like you didn't want to be erased by what
mhm,
happened.
mhm,
Um, and I'm just thinking about what you said, Susan, that stuck out to me is like how many people, especially editors and different journalists within a news organization, look over an article like this before they decide we're going to publish this.
mhm,
We're going to
And
put this
fact
out
check
into
it.
the world. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
This might be the first thing that a family member or a friend sees about the situation. And that's
mhm,
what we chose to put out there.
And to relate that back to the article, I would love to get in and talk about some of the images in the article,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and how they got them. Because there's so many pictures, and Noah, I don't know if you want to pull up. There's one picture that I think is an aerial shot of the cars in the middle of
Yeah.
the article, and I'm like, how do you even get that shot? How do you as a reporter acquire that? Because that's like where you just climb a mountain and take a long shot. Like, what are they doing to get these shots and to further sensationalize and drive this beyond what it needs to be, which is a total tragedy. Like
I
it's crazy.
I assume that's a drone.
That's a drone, I'm sure. And I think that the point that they were trying to make was this is an expensive area of Cape Cod, which had nothing to do with,
Yeah.
you know, the incident whatsoever, but a beautiful home in a beautiful area. Oh, and
I
here's the drone shot of the neighborhood kind of thing.
I I actually think so there's two cars in this image. There's a blue one and a silver one. The silver one was my mother's car, and I actually drove it where it was and parked it on purpose. So that is where the fire was. And it's like white shells, and then there was, charred shells. So I parked one of those cars specifically because I did not want them, if this were to happen, and then it happened, right? To see that. So those cars are parked pretty purposefully, but if I hadn't thought to do that,
Amazing,
it would have
yeah.
been a different shot. Um, yeah, I and the Sarah and I have commented on the image below it where it's dark in the background. It says dead end. And it
Yeah.
says private road. And it's this little cute road that goes like up to a hill. But you take that at night and it can look spooky. Um, yeah.
And oddly enough, that picture I think has two sides to it. It's almost this comical side of this dead end street sign that you could find literally anywhere and take a picture
Mm,
of and filter it a certain way to make it look really
mm,
ominous when really it is just a street sign. So there's that side of it. And then the other side of it for me is like something about looking at a street sign and seeing a street name and trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who's going through this loss and saying like you lose all your privacy. Like that could
yeah.
be if I were going through this, that would be my street sign. Like they're
Mm,
getting that close to your house and your home and the place where not only you live, but also the place that a horrible tragedy has taken place.
mm, mm.
It's so invasive.
I think Dead End frames that as well. I mean,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
really unfortunate to include, dead end road. Like, come on,
it's so true.
is there any
Yeah.
empathy? Do we care about people at all? Like this is a family who's having to think of everything but what they want to think about in the middle of something that they've had no control, probably came out of the blue. Like this is crazy. And the police have to be in on it. The whole media is in on it. And we're monetizing you guys. It's gross. It's
Mhm.
frustrating.
True.
Yeah.
I have something I would like to add. My dad worked in radio, TV broadcasting for many years. He would often tell me that working in the news station could sometimes be a negative environment because if there was an airplane crash or a major fire in the community, it would be like a great day in the news station. Wow, let's be the first one on the scene. We've got a great story. Come on, we got a headliner today, guys. But if it was a slow news day where there weren't any big activities, the news was slow, they'd have to go into finding maybe like a nice sports event that's happening, or maybe someone in the community found a wallet and returned it with $20 or still in it. Stories like that would take the place of a major headline. And he was often frustrated by that because if it wasn't anything major and impacting the lives of someone in a detrimental way, the news broadcast for the night would be considered boring. Oh man, we're going to have a boring broadcast tonight because there are no major events. So they praise those events like what we all have suffered as a loss. Those are like big events in the news media because it's going to get you the most viewers. And in that world, because I am a former radio broadcast host, I know for sure that ratings are like that's everything in that world. You need those ratings, you need those views, and the higher they are, the more traffic is driven to your station in terms of your network. So it's
Mm,
very complicated, but I think that explains why they sensationalize those types of stories because that's where you're going to get the most feedback. And think about this, most people who don't watch the news, when do they watch it? When there's a major event going on in the world, when someone was murdered or killed 3 doors down from them and they know it's going to be on the news tonight. So,
mm.
yeah.
Was your story on the news ticker, Latoya?
Yeah.
Yeah, ours was too.
Yeah, it was.
It's like the morning news show, and it scrolls across the bottom while the pretty
Mhm,
ladies are talking. Um,
mhm.
Wild. But I will say most of these pictures, I think just coming back, AJ, to your question, is Facebook. They took them from my brother's non-private, public, I guess, Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this info came from Facebook as well. Um, they do claim that there was a source. I don't know who that person was. Um, some of the things they got right, some of the things they did not.
And how do you, any of you can answer this, how do you feel about your neighbors coming forward and talking about this without giving you a heads up or asking permission, or like the people that you love and that are in your community and that you brought cookies to and maybe you've had family events with, did they just go to the news like that? Like what's going through your head? Did it happen to you? I mean, because that's my first thought.
Great question.
Well, I had an aunt who went forward and had all these things to say, and I was very offended by her comments because she didn't have the right to talk about those things like the day they were married because my dad and his wife, they were engaged on the wife's birthday and married on his birthday. Details like that. The
Yeah.
media didn't need to know that. They did not. And I felt like she did not have the right to speak on those matters. That wasn't her place.
The same thing happened with Susan. The neighbor came forward who owned a local business and stood in front of her business and gave, information that, she half knew, but it was, because she was a neighbor, they took her at her word, even though she knew very little, but it proved to sensationalize the situation even more, which I think was unfortunate. This is where Susan was murdered and Adam lived. Is a very small town, and many people knew them both. And to have them, talked about that way, by somebody who barely knew them, was really disconcerting. And again, like Latoya said, I think the media looks for the sensational, and whoever they can talk to. And I know a number of Susan's friends refuse to talk to the press, which, many of us refused to talk to the press, and we were being called all the time.
Yeah, it was a Boston Globe article, so like a pretty reputable newspaper. Spoke to this neighbor of my mother's, and she basically used it as an advertisement for her business.
Exactly.
She did not know my family very well. She had not been a neighbor for very long. That was the most hurtful article. Actually, I should have sent a copy of that, but it doesn't, whatever. That was a more hurtful article than this. Just because it seemed more, sure, let's believe our neighbor. Rather than this culling from Facebook kind of sensationalized stuff.
Yeah, and she was a
Um,
local business person, so she
mhm.
was, people assumed that she knew what she was talking about.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense why I could see the other article being more hurtful, especially I don't know if others see it this way, but I view the Boston Globe as a little bit more legitimate than the Daily Mail. I think to some degree I expect these things from the Daily Mail, and I'm thinking about Latoya's point earlier too about, um, there's kind of this system in media that reinforces people sensationalizing headlines. You want to have those big catchy news stories because that's what makes money. Um, but I can imagine there's something especially devastating about a reputable journal or news source publishing lies in, I mean, maybe not exactly the same way, but functionally the same way. Yeah.
Not just that, but I think one thing that really sticks with me is they go into a lot about Adam's personal life. Like,
Making judgments about his personal life.
right,
Yeah.
right, or putting things in that maybe make a sense of accomplishment or add to the tragedy in some way that just aren't necessary. They don't feel like they add to what happened. It feels like some editor came and padded an article. An event happened and they wanted to ship, and they just came in and put a bunch of information and said, we don't care if it's accurate, we don't care if this hurts anybody. Here's a bunch of pictures of their family, here's a bunch of pictures of their kids. I thought that was wild.
Yeah.
Susan with her dog.
Exactly. In the kitchen having a normal human moment.
Yeah.
And maybe if the article was a little more human, that would fit. But it's just and if there was a way to, in a sentence, maybe address your concerns with the media, what would it be?
Good question. With the media, I think reporting what happened in a way that takes into account the people that are still living is important. Empathy, I think, sympathy. I think that's and it should be an important and top of the mind when reporting anything. It doesn't and not everything needs to be reported if it's not going to be um helpful and something that again, these people that are still alive and going through this
Mhm.
could see.
In a follow-up, did anyone in the media handle this in a way that made you feel at all human or respected or like you could have boundaries?
No.
No, and we actually made a concerted effort not to talk to the media because things were being so blown out of proportion. I mean, it was a horribly a horrible um, event that happened in a family between two family members. And everything that they picked up on through the photographs or social media or something is only like, it's like one little snapshot in a lifetime. It has nothing to do with the actual events that happened, what occurred afterward, who these people were. Um, I mean, if it were me and I were the editor of this paper, I would say, you need to stick to particular facts. This happened, and this happened, and that's it. I think because, especially for Susan and Adam, because this was a small town where, rarely does something of this nature happen. It was even a bigger deal was made of it because, it was so sensationalized in the press. Whereas it should have actually been maybe not even appear at all. I mean, everyone knew, the police and everybody knew, the family, all of friends knew who the perpetrator was and who the victim was, and that was it. And it was a family, and we were all affected by it.
I think my contribution would be to, if I had the opportunity to speak with the media, I would just tell them to stick to the fair reporting guidelines. Stick to the guidelines, report what you should report in a way that delivers it where it's not a sensationalized story, and just stick to the facts. Be careful.
And avoid all of the photographs. There's no
Yes.
need to show lifestyle photographs.
Mm-hmm.
There just isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Especially, I think what you were saying, Susan, I liked the phrase you used, like, this is a snapshot of
Mhm.
this person's life. And to only see a snapshot, and yet I'm seeing pictures of Adam's daughter, I'm seeing pictures of Jenna in a bridesmaid dress. Like,
Mm-hmm.
those are
Mhm.
private family photos that I can imagine this is the last place you would possibly want to see them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I know for my dad, they showed pictures of the wedding day, their wedding, and
Wow.
there were little kids in the photos and other people who were just coming to celebrate the big day, and they ended up on the news as well because of the photos they showed. Yeah.
It's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
I
I
wonder
mean,
if
Even the little flower girl was shown.
mhm.
awful. Jenna, I think you mentioned earlier that you maybe had some Facebook comments that you wanted to go through, thinking
Yeah.
about I know we're talking a lot about this idea of the article itself, but I wonder if we could talk about how that translates to all of the things people were saying then um, on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Oh, can't get it now. Yeah, no, I'd sent our moderator here some images. I mean, so I think that this entire article was, or most of it was culled from my brother's Facebook page. That's why there's even a picture of me, because it was on his Facebook page. Be careful what you post. Be careful of your privacy settings. I don't know. Um, but yeah, then because it was a public page, after this happened, people felt like they could post. I'm just gonna log back in. They could post whatever they wanted. They could say whatever they wanted about my brother. This was, to be honest with you, friends, family members, and strangers, all posting. Here, I forget exactly what I sent. our moderator to. So my brother's mentally ill. My brother had bipolar 1. He had schizoaffective. I think I don't actually know the correct term. He would have delusions. He would have hallucinations. We don't actually know what his mental health state was at the time that he killed our mother. But I spoke to him more or less directly after, and he was not well. But so he posted something on September 15th, 2022. My mother died September 30th. He died October 2nd of 2022. So if you go to his page, he posts something about writing a children's book. He's clearly not well. If you knew him, you would know that he is clearly not well writing this post. But then the first thing you see underneath it is someone I do not know saying this MF is a whole scumbag. This is something that my brother's wife can see, I can see, our father can see, the world can see. And there are 141 comments, and I think that's not a lot compared to what some people are getting. I don't know if Latoya, if you have this happen with social media, but people can say whatever they want. And you will, if you knew and lost these people that you love, you will see it, because you will, unless you don't look, which is hard to do.
I
I don't know.
something that comes to mind for me when you said, or you cannot look, is that I don't know if any of you did this, but in my experience with losses or deaths, I know a common place people will go to is social media in the aftermath of those losses to see the memories and see the
Mm-hmm.
kind, supportive things that people are saying, ideally. Um, so I think holding that in mind, knowing that people are commenting, you said 141 comments?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That instead you're getting like vitriol and really hateful things from strangers,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and in a place that there should be comfort and ideally kindness.
Yeah. My mother's page I memorialized, and that way,
Mm.
it stopped.
Mm.
It did stop the good, I think, as well. But I was able to lock that one up. I do not have the ability to lock my brother's page though. So um yeah, I mean, it's hard. There was one comment. I'm gonna try to find it. Um it's on the second post on his page with 31 comments. Um Someone I know, this is a friend, and a colleague actually, said that monster, in quotes, as you call him, was severely plagued with mental health and addiction issues. And while, of course, this is an unspeakable tragedy, demonizing somebody does nobody any good. You want to lash out at the completely broken healthcare system in this
Mm.
USA, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think he makes a good point. I'm happy he wrote that there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like the healthcare system failed my brother. I feel like he is a victim as well as a perpetrator. Um, and I'm glad that someone else wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
From sorry to interrupt. Do you want to
No,
finish your
no,
um, from reading the article and then
yeah.
hearing about your experience on Facebook, and it just it seems like there's this huge blind spot for when this something like this happens. I didn't even think about the fact that you can't lock your brother's Facebook account,
Mm.
or you can lock your mom's, but
Mhm.
you can't get into anything, or something might be in evidence, or things might be closed down, and it's just awful process after awful process after awful process. You would think that this happens, did you say once a day?
Once a day,
About
give or take. Could be
and
more. Yeah.
and we keep putting people through this and unnecessary trauma of and not having the tools to be able to say, hey, something really, really, really bad happened. Please give me access to make this right. This will be part of my healing process. This is part of making me whole. It just seems like you're running into bureaucratic nonsense, at least from
Yeah,
my perspective.
you need a death certificate. You have to upload that to Facebook in order to memorialize an account. You have to be the next of kin. I'm not my brother's next of kin. I was my mother's. You have to prove it. It's yeah. And I don't know, for me going through it, I just didn't look um at any of this really. I knew the news articles were coming out. I knew but I didn't read them and I didn't look on Facebook, and I just kind of was like, people are going to say what they're going to say, and I can't let that affect me right now.
It's a little bit stunning that, while we're in mourning, strangers are able to continually make comments, and family members can't put a stop to it or even get records. I know that Jenna had a lot of trouble getting into her mother's computer, getting, things of her brother's phone, everything. It was just impossible to basically stop the flow of information. It's almost like you have no privacy once something like this happens because, the newspapers and public forum take over in a way that makes it impossible, to have any control over the situation. And it's all the time you're grieving. All the time you're trying to come to terms with the shock of what has gone on and how this happened and why this happened in your own mind, while you're still, getting bombarded. And like I mentioned before, even calls from reporters all the time for months, trying to find out more information when there wasn't any more information. I mean, we knew exactly what happened when it happened, and yet it was still news. So yeah, I think the fact that somehow Facebook, Instagram, all of these social media accounts are something that you can't really control. It makes it, like you said, Jenna, you have to be careful what you put on there,
Mhm.
because it goes into the public right away
Mhm.
and stays there in perpetuity.
You're almost having to deconstruct their life while you're deconstructing your own to even be able to process any of this in any way that resembles like a normal human, because it's just like they're putting up barriers in front of you is what it looks like everywhere is another roadblock.
Mhm.
Also just thinking like, I mean, Jenna, when you mentioned the post that you said this one just has 31 comments.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about 31 people in a room with you giving their opinion on your trauma,
Mhm.
that's a lot of people. That's a lot of
Mhm.
different narratives and opinions and perspectives that are, I mean, if you read the Daily Mail article, is based on complete nonsense.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, if I were to write a news article about this, it would have been something like, uh, man who suffers from mental health issues,
Mhm.
you know, something like that. That would be, 34, um, killed his mother. We don't know the details of it.
Right.
Um, and if you're coming 2 days after it, like he died 2 days later. Um, I mean, this is something else we can talk about another day. But he was in a prison cell. I think they claim in these articles that he was like going to get mental health care. Someone decided he was not suicidal enough to be looked at, continuously monitored. So he was on 15-minute checks. And he was able to use the one thing in his jail cell that he had available to asphyxiate himself. So, he died 2 days later. Um, Mental health is important here, and then give resources is where I'm coming to. That I think is more important, because if as if I was someone who says someone who went through this 3 years ago, right, was looking at other murder suicide cases, I would want to know, you know oh, this happened, and then where can I get support? Or if I'm looking at my own article, where can I get support? And that's not given
Anyway, yeah.
anywhere. And it doesn't have to be us, but I would love it if it was. You know, and I think that's a big, Sarah and I come across this a lot when we're putting in the term murder suicide into Google bars. They give you if you need support, call 988. But that's not in any of the articles. That's not on the websites. That's not, yeah. Oh, Latoya, sorry.
So I don't know if it's okay to ask this question, Jenna. Will the prison where this happened, are they taking any culpability for this?
That's a really good question. Not that I know of. It was not, I am not my brother's next of kin. My understanding is that it was decided that they would not be looking into it, and the statute of limitations has since passed.
Wow.
I just found all of this out, actually. So no, this was a prison in Massachusetts with the highest suicide rate. It does.
Understaffed.
It was understaffed. Yeah, it was understaffed. He went to a hospital after murdering our mother. He went to a hospital. I believe he was not given a psych eval. They used the wrong section code. The judge gave him a section, I think it was a 14 instead of a 12, or so he was sent to prison instead of a mental health facility. And then again, he was not put under suicide watch. The whole thing seems to me wildly mismanaged.
Yeah, because I know my ex-husband was a corrections officer, and there was a young man who took his own life in the unit where my ex was working. And because he was on duty that night, he wasn't even near the area where it happened. But because he was on duty that night, they put him and the rest of the team on administrative leave to investigate until that was I guess until the investigation was cleared. So we take that very seriously here in Michigan. Yeah.
I don't know if there was any recourse for any of this, but at this point, I think no. And that's sad, I think. Frustrating.
Stage for it to happen again,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, my brother was one of, I forget the actual statistic, but it's, I think, like 20 people who had lost their lives in Massachusetts in that same prison. Not lost their lives, they had taken their lives, and that, because it's sad. I think we can sort of circle back to the stigma of suicide, the stigma of murder, the stigma of all of this, and how perhaps it's that it gets sensationalized like this. It's not taken seriously. I don't know what your thoughts are, Sarah. You're studying it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for lack of a better term, it creates an ickiness around it for people. I think that, do we want to say bye to Latoya real quick?
Yeah.
I believe Latoya will be hopping off to take her lunch break. She was so generous with us.
Yes, thank you. My lunch break is over now, so I have to report back to my cubicle in my office. But I really appreciate you all for having me today, and I thank you for allowing me to offer my input. And Alex, it was nice to meet you.
It was so nice to meet you, Latoya. Thank you so much for sharing. I know none of this is easy, and your story is so powerful. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, Latoya. But I think for lack of a better term, like it creates an ickiness around it. And there is something we talk about in suicide stigma specifically that I think is amplified by murder suicide stigma, where suicidal or mentally ill people are viewed as like contaminated, like they're dangerous, they're just not people you want to be around. Like they kind of get demonized, and I feel like with murder suicide, it's so much stronger. It's all of the same stigmas, but it's worse, or maybe not all of the same, but I think that even for mental health professionals, something Jenna and I have talked about a lot is like there are a lot of mental health professionals that are uncomfortable with suicide. They're definitely uncomfortable with murder suicide. They, I would say, a lot of people don't really get training in this. They don't necessarily know how to navigate talking about murder suicide. So kind of a, it's not really a joke, but kind of a running joke between Jenna and I is like, do people even know what a murder suicide loss
Mm-hmm.
survivor is? Do they know what a murder suicide is? I see AJ maybe shaking his head a little bit.
I had to ask. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know the exact definition, and I loved how inclusive the definition was once I found out.
Yeah.
Did you want to say a little bit more about what you mean by inclusive?
Sure, yeah. So when
Yes.
I think murder suicide survivor, I think murdered, dead, done, to put it in the most un-PC way possible. But that's not it at all. I mean, Jenna, your story is there were 48 hours between the events, and you were failed by the system at every step of the way. Susan, you too. Every
Mm-hmm.
step of the way, somebody could have done something, or maybe not because it happened, right? But that's what I keep coming back to is that it's so easy to end up in this situation. It happens all the time. And I don't even know what a murder suicide loss survivor is until I ask the question. And how do you know to ask until something happens or you're exposed? Yeah, I just think that like knowing, having the power, it gives you something to at least start if something happens to you. And this is possibly one of the worst things that could ever happen to you. So we need more education of lay people like myself so that they care. If people like me don't care, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Definitely.
if you care, maybe you're less likely to publish articles that are.
Publish articles, go on Facebook and say something mean and evil
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and cause trauma and damage when it's not your place, but to help someone heal.
Because
And
And
it's
on the flip side of that, we've talked about this between us. You know, Susan was one of my closest friends. We also worked together at a number of different organizations in the town where we live, and it's a small town, and nobody talks about it anymore. It's like it's over, it's done, it was horrible, it happened. We're not going to talk about it. And I know I'm not the only friend she had, only close friend that she had, and yet people just avoid the topic, you know, uh, around her birthday, holidays. I mean, she and I used to bake together. We always had a whole lot of fun. And, you know, I miss her tremendously. I miss her, you know, in all the organizations we worked with. I mean, and how funny she was. And Adam too. I mean, I knew Adam as well. And yet it's almost like they're off the face of the earth, so they don't exist. Um, and that's also hard, AJ, but to not have people say, because, you know, with other family members of mine, and I know Jenna with you too, I mean, people say, oh, I really miss my dad, you know, he died, you know, 6 years ago. I really miss, if they weren't, if it wasn't a traumatic death like this was, people talk about people who've passed away. But here we don't. You know, a lot of people don't. And I think that Murder Suicide Loss Network at least gives survivors, families, friends, relatives, daughters, sons, you know, children, mothers, fathers, a place to go and actually talk about how you feel. Because we all have very similar feelings.
Mm-hmm. We're very different, but we are empathetic. You
Absolutely.
know, you can say whatever you want,
Mhm.
and no one does the face,
Mm.
or says, "Oh, that was you." Um,
Or there's, or judgment, or, you know,
yeah.
I mean, there's room to grieve in whatever ways you need to grieve, which
Mhm.
is important, I think.
And do either of you think that's like a cultural affectation? Do you think that because of the way, and this is buying into literally everything that happened along the way. Everything's profit driven, everything is time driven, everything is dependent on a dollar. Do you
Mm.
think that that has impacted the experience beyond what it needs to be? Do you think if you were somewhere else experiencing this, that it would turn out different? Do you think this is a universal thing?
That's a big question.
So-
Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, I think in this small town, from what we could see, even just from that one article, is they're trying to put together some sort of puzzle, you
Mm.
know, something similar to this happened 10 years ago, which was completely not at all the same. But they're, people are trying to put it together. But I think, I don't know, maybe it's just human to try and want to make sense of something,
Definitely.
you know,
Yeah.
even when there's no way to actually explain it.
But I also think it's human to, I don't know. I don't know because I'm really only from this culture. But when, death happens, um, you mourn and you put it aside. You have anniversaries, I guess, your body remembers. But I don't know. I don't know that I don't have a lot of experience in death. I'm giggling because of course I do, but aside of my mother and my brother, I lost grandparents.
Mhm.
Um, I have not, I've not lost a lot of. I've been lucky, I suppose. I'm 40, so like,
Yeah.
you know, um, so I don't really know. Is this something we don't really talk about? I mean, we definitely talk about my grandparents.
Mhm.
Um, we remember them. I have the days that I have their birthdays and the days that they died in my phone, just like I do with my mother and my brother. Um, Perhaps it's easier to talk about them because there's just good memories. At the end, you knew this was gonna occur. You knew they were gonna die of old age or something. It wasn't a shock. Um, and with my mother and brother, people feel like they have to tiptoe around them, or maybe not even mark their anniversaries,
Mm.
because what you remember is this final thing that happened, that feels so
Unresolved.
painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Jenna, I'm gonna mess it up because I
Please.
don't remember it exactly, but there's a line in your memoir
Mhm,
about it was like people are different after they die. And you were
mhm,
talking about how once that act has been committed and once everyone starts talking and the narratives start happening, it's like that person's never going to be the same again as they were before. Um, and I wonder to what degree that has something to do with it. It's like this horrible act is just erasing, because like I know culturally speaking, I've experienced where people will say like don't speak ill of the dead, like you only say positive things about the dead, like
mhm.
even like people who were bad people that have passed away, they say like don't do that, don't say negative things. But it's almost like in this case the act itself being so awful, it's just like it's like you said, like erase the good. It's just not like we're just gonna not talk about it because it's more comfortable to not talk about it.
I think that's true. Do you find that that is true in just suicide case like losses?
I think it's true with like abuse as well. I think
Mm,
it's true with complicated deaths in general. But I think probably especially so with murder suicide loss,
mm,
again thinking about those, like just how I think shocking it is to people when they realize that this is something that could happen to someone,
yes.
and could happen to anyone.
Mhm,
It's all the questions I think that come up,
mm,
in your mind. Like, and I'm a lot older than all of you. People have died of illness, of cancer, of all kinds of things, old age, and it's normal and natural in our culture that people, at some point are going to pass away. This isn't passing away. This is a violent
mhm.
act.
Yes.
And so what happens is it's hard to think of it in the same way.
Mhm.
And I think that the trauma of it stays in you. Um, I
Mhm.
mean, whenever I think about it, I mean, you have a lot of questions, and we brought this up many times in our groups. Is like some of us feel like, what should we have said? Could we have done? Was there any interaction or intervention that we could have, facilitated that wouldn't made this not happen? You start thinking things that you would never think about, if, a grandparent died naturally of, old age or natural causes. It's a different set of circumstances.
Mhm.
So that's the way I think about
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. Just thinking about there are a number of questions that you might not ever have the answer to
it.
that are
Right.
Mm.
also weighing on you.
Exactly.
And you have to figure out
How do you live with
how to
that?
live. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, but we're also in this digital age where
Hmm.
information spreads really quickly.
Mhm.
I
And
had
lives
someone,
forever
yeah,
online.
Whether it's true or not.
yeah, I
Yes,
had someone
exactly.
in our community, actually more than one. I had multiple people while this was happening who knew because, you know, word, what's happening at your mom's house. I heard there's police cars there.
Mhm.
Um, I read in the newspaper. I was at Susan's house with a group of people when I found out my brother had died.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden everyone knows.
Yeah.
But it's online and it's in text and I don't know if this had happened pre cell phones, that I don't know how I would have mourned that happening or talked about it because now it's just something where it's like, well, it's out there. You can
Yeah. I mean,
move
Jenna,
forward.
I was having a memorial service for Jenna's
Yeah.
mom, and she came in with a couple of friends and got a phone call from the police department that her brother had just, I mean, everything is so immediate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you were there to mourn your mother, and all of a sudden you find out about your brother. I mean, it was really traumatic.
Mhm.
I think it's worth mentioning most murder suicides are domestic. Most murder suicides, like 98+% are involving a gun.
Mhm.
So I don't speak from that. Most people either. The, most common, Latoya does though, but she has left. So I can't speak for her. But I don't know how different it would have been if, my circumstances had been sort of what most. Um, I, it's fascinating. We love our group. We love to have people that have had all these different experiences, and we do just want to call out that we consider a murder suicide to include attempts. Sometimes we have people who the perpetrator, if you will, tried, killed someone else and tried to kill themselves and was unsuccessful. Um, or we have the other way where, someone was um, not
Attempted murder.
murdered. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and we have all of these, it doesn't feel like there is a usual. Everybody's story is unique. Everyone's story is different. Everyone, like we've had family members, they all mourn differently. And it's just about, they all coming together and having a place where we can talk about it. And I want to be mindful of people's time. So I just want to say how amazing it is to have everyone here talking about it. We're hoping to get the word out there so that survivors can find us, can find our support group. And I'll
And
just say, not everyone wants to be in a support group, and that's fine too. But we're here if you want us and you want to be a member.
And if you happen to be a supporter listening and you're trying to learn more and understand, I think one lesson you can take away from today that I think Jenna just highlighted is that, if you do encounter someone going through a murder suicide loss, one of the biggest things that you can remember is that everyone grieves differently. Everyone's going to navigate this differently. They're going to have different feelings about it. So it might be really strong negative feelings. There might be some positive feelings in there. And so we encourage you, regardless of whether you're a survivor or supporter, to check out our website. Got lots of resources on there, and hopefully, we will continue to be mailing out resources and also having these conversations.
Yeah.
Um, and consider supporting our GoFundMe to support those efforts if you can.
Thank you.
AJ, did you want to say something?
Yeah, do we want to call out the website? Do we want to call it social media tags?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where can I find you on Instagram? Do you guys have an Instagram? Do you guys
We
have a
do.
Twitter? Do you have a Blue Sky? Do you have a Mastodon?
You
What's the
would I
website? How
Don't
can
do
I
this.
find you?
We I think we stick to the Instagram and the Facebook.
yeah,
Instagram. All right, so your
mostly.
Instagram tag.
Although I'm told that we need to be doing more on TikTok. I have a lot to upload.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
All of our
I
tags, I believe, if you go to the
yeah,
website, everything is linked. We do have a
yes.
link tree on here.
www.murdersuicidelostnetwork.org. We are a 501c3
Nonprofit.
nonprofit.
Mhm.
You can also get there mslnetwork.org. Um, we do have Facebook, Instagram. We do have a Twitter. It's just quiet right now. We're going to work on it. We are streaming live on our new Twitch page, I think. No, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We'll put all that in the
Yes. And you can
recording.
find us, social media handles are all just Murder Suicide Loss Network. So very easy.
And any suggestions you might have for us, please
Mhm.
let us know, because we're here to help in any way that we possibly can. Um,
Yeah,
so
we love the comments,
love the comment.
constructive criticism.
And you guys are welcoming both survivors and allies. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, so
Go ahead, Jen.
go ahead.
I was gonna say
I'm
we've been calling them supporters, I think, but
yeah. But like a survivor is anybody who considers themselves to have experienced a loss, right? So family members, friends, community members, if you feel like you have lost someone in a murder suicide, you're welcome to join our group. It does not need to be, an immediate family member. Susan lost her best friend, or one of her very close friends that is a survivor. Supporters are people we think of as first responders, people that will be connecting. I had this wonderful man at the funeral home who's so thoughtful. I can't even begin to talk about how he was just amazing, but if he had had a flyer, one of our flyers, and said, here, there's a support group, it would have been like mind blowing. So those are kind of the people we consider supporters. People that we interacting with and hopefully helping survivors.
and people who are willing to learn and spread the word too.
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right. Well, maybe that is a good note
Yeah, I
for
think that's
us to
about an
end
hour.
on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you.
all so much. I look forward to the next conversation.
Yes, thank
Wonderful.
you both for the questions. I mean, great questions. Wonderful.
Sorry for my ignorance. Thank you for the education,
Thank
everybody.
you for
you, Phil.
coming. We hope more people that don't, that just want to learn about it will come on, because that's how, someone's got to talk about it. It's got to get out there.
That's how we learn.
And your questions are universal questions. So a lot of people have those questions. Thank you very much.